As the host of Neutralize, the Mama Trauma podcast, I am delighted to be able to bring you this podcast. My name is Wendy Lopez, and I would like to introduce myself to you. I specialize in helping people overcome their emotional blocks through different techniques, through emotional empowerment coaching and compassionate healing light facilitation. As a mom who has experienced narcissistic trauma, I help moms eradicate self-doubt in order to regain self-confidence to elevate their status both at home and at work. In our podcast, we discuss people's struggles, triumphs, and failures. We dive deeper into self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance, and mindful, holistic tips. In every episode, I hope that you can take a golden nugget of advice and apply it to the journey of motherhood in order to raise your level of awareness. Welcome to Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast, where you find healing and creative mental thought from experts on past pain, narcissistic experiences, and trauma. Today, I have a special guest, and her name is Delisa from Faith and Sparkles World. She's an empowerment leadership coach, and I'm so grateful that she decided to hop on with us this morning. So, Delisa, welcome aboard. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with your empowerment leadership?
Well, hi, Wendy, and hi, everyone that is listening. I'm so excited to be here. So, it's going to be such a great time. And what I do as an empower leadership coach, I work with parents, I work with educators, and some professionals, some entrepreneurs, and I guide them through that process of empowerment and in leadership. I really work with them in learning and teaching them and guiding them how to create the space that they need in their homes, in themselves, so that they, their family, their community, it can thrive. Not just for a moment, not just for a day, but continuously on and on. So there's that process. And really sharing with parents as well to let them know that you don't have to follow any particular way of how to raise your children. Every child is unique. Every child is special, similar to how we are all each special and unique. And so that as they learn to create the space, which is the basis foundation of what I do, then they can start learning to activate the light within themselves and in their children so that everyone is thriving and growing holistically.
Right.
And living in purpose. So that is what I do, to sum it up very quickly.
Very nice. I'm so glad to have you on board, because that's essentially what the podcast is about, is to help mothers jump out of that trauma so they can be more whole within themselves, and then have and bring wholeness into their family. So becomes a healthy family, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know we talked about before hitting record about how can someone learn to respond and not react? Like, that is something that I believe we all get triggered, and maybe we don't realize that we react instead of respond. Can you describe the difference between that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I just want everyone to know, this was a process for me as well in learning how to respond, because our natural response is to react initially. So the difference between reacting and responding is when we hear something, someone says something, there's what happens in our brain, in our system, that triggers it. And response. It could be an angry response. It could be a defeated response. It's not a response or a reaction. So your child is like, I want more milk. Maybe you're going through a tough financial situation at the time. You're like, we don't have any milk. Maybe you raise your voice. This is how you react, because now your child is just wanting a little bit extra milk, for example, but we're caught up with the finances that's happening, that's how we react. Now the child comes now, and how we respond is, Mom, can I have more milk, for example? And we said, oh, did you finish all your meals? Did you finish all your food? Or I'll just give you a little bit extra because I don't want you to be too full if you drink too much. Now, it's not saying no. There's nothing wrong with saying no. If there's no more milk, there's no more milk. you say that there's no more milk, but what you're doing is instead of going back into that triggering moment of the financial situation that you're possibly thinking about, it could be any situation that you're thinking about. Now you're responding to what the child needs, and you're looking at, okay, did you drink the milk too quickly, right? Should you have some water instead? Did you finish all the food? And so now we're responding in a way that is not making the child feel self-conscious. We're not making our children feel like, oh, I don't know if I should ask for something, or start getting into like a particular mindset when it comes to asking for things or wanting something. So I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah,
What I just
that makes a lot of sense. So that's interesting, right? Because you said if we react instead of respond, we're actually creating some type of a either it could be like fear or it could
yes,
be trauma, right?
yes,
And
yeah.
then asking, because that was an ask from the
Mm-hmm.
child. So
Mm-hmm.
when a child is asking something and we react instead of respond, perhaps that's why it's so hard for millions
Yeah.
of parents to even ask for help.
Absolutely. 100%. I agree with that. And, as I mentioned, I myself was there in terms of reacting. And then I had to learn to, and this was even before I had my daughter, and even when I had my daughter, what am I responding to? What do I need to release? How is this the space that I want? So, one of the things as an empowerment leadership coach I do is talk about creating this space. And what type of space do I want in my home? That's what I'm cultivating. That's what I want to grow. That's the environment that I want to thrive in myself. I want my family to thrive in. And so as we start going through that process, and as you mentioned with the reaction, as I spoke about that, instead of reacting, now we respond because everything is tied together. I know, okay, this is the environment that I want
Mm-hmm.
my child, myself, my home, my family to thrive in, to grow holistically. I
Mm-hmm.
want that when we have a pain or hurt, it is released. We can speak about it. And when we start creating and cultivating that space in our homes, physically, and then in our minds, mentally, and then emotionally, and so on and so forth, and spiritually, the traumas start to be released.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can easily respond. Now, is it forgotten? No, we remember. But do we hold on to it? No, we do not. And it
Mm-hmm.
becomes easier for us to respond to any and all situations because now we have that moment that we can reflect and think about it, and we're approaching the situation differently.
Beautiful. Yes. And so I wanted to land with the moms and the audience that's listening, that uh, hearing with what you were saying about the response and the ask, right? So as moms, maybe we should look into, are we responding toxically?
Mhm.
Are we, because then that's creating a trauma to the child, right?
Yes.
And therefore, we know that as we grow up, we still have that child inside us with those traumas, that it's hard for us to ask for even a raise, right? Or
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
hard for us to ask for some type of reward or need or help if we were spoken to when we were younger and we asked and we got like a toxic response.
Yeah.
So that's ingrained in ourselves. So what I want to share is to move out of that type of responding so we don't cause further you could say damage to the psyche
Mhm.
with our grandchildren,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Because if we don't correct it within ourselves, because some of my audience may already have adult children,
Mhm.
but then there's the grandchildren, we can always learn in these cycles of changes in our lives to respond and react more holistically.
Absolutely, 100%. I'll give you a perfect example because you mentioned grandparents.
Yeah.
How my mom raised me, how my grandmother, and just my mom and my dad. And I also grew up with my grandmother for a short period of time.
Okay.
And when I had my daughter, I remember saying to my mom, and just not only to my mom, to my family as well, like, you guys need to be different. You cannot
Mm.
like you need to be different. And I had to set clear boundaries, and
Yes.
I had to within my own self make the decision to say I am willing to walk away if things don't change. And it
Ooh.
wasn't because I was trying to be mean or harsh or negative or anything. And I remember my mom saying to me, well, I'll just come and knock on the door. You can't stop me from standing by the door. And I'm like, that's fine. You could do whatever you need. She's like, you can't stop me from, like, if I see her saying hi. And I'm like, you're welcome to do what you're welcome to do, but you need to change, right? You need to change your tonality. You need to change how you speak. There are so many things. And she went through that process. And then my mom had cancer after my daughter was born. It was breast cancer. And in that time, she really started to look inwardly. And although she did some of the changes while I was pregnant and after I became pregnant, and I was saying to her, you're very dominating. You have a very masculine personality. And I don't have a problem saying that because I was confident in myself and I did the work that was needed for me to be able to state this and to share this so I can make those decisions. And so that's when she started making the shift. And after the cancer came, then she started to go ever deeper into who she is and what is her beliefs and values, and really start transforming and doing the inner work and having a relationship with God. And as Faith came along, now Faith is 2 at the time, my mom starts going through this treatment. I saw that relationship, not only with myself and my mom, but also with Faith, very different.
Mhm.
How she treats Faith, how she spoke with Faith, um, and how their relationship started to blossom. And even when Faith would question certain things, because I wanted Faith to be in a space where she had, I want her to think and I want her to question things. I want you to
Right.
be curious. Now my mom was accepting and welcoming of that. And now the things that she didn't know the answer to, instead of just being like, I don't know, I'm busy right now, that what she would say to me in the past, now she's saying to, she would take the time to figure it out or learn about it so then she can have that, grow that relationship with Faith. And
Right.
so with grandparents, we start seeing they naturally want to have that relationship with their grandchildren, right? They're
Right.
just like, okay, I have this moment, I have this opportunity. And so they naturally want to do this. But then as parents ourselves, we could join in with that so that relationship can really be a nice solidified strong, because there's teachings from the ancient ones, I'm saying the ancient ones, the elders, that we need,
Mm.
that as parents we don't fully know yet, but our parents know and our great grandparents know. So
Right.
I think that it's so wonderful, but also healing
Mhm.
with our parents, at healing the trauma and using our voice and being able to stand and set the boundaries when needed. That is the biggest change and impact that is going to help our trauma, is going to help us to release, and it's going to help the next generation to thrive and
Yes.
all generations to heal.
Right. And I love that you said you were willing to walk away
Yes,
in
yes,
order to shift that pattern or cycle of trauma behavior, right? Because
yes,
I really
yes,
believe that as parents, as we become aware and we're doing the inner work, and like you said, the relationship, the dynamics start changing between you and your child. Because we do that work, it fosters the space of creativity for the
yes.
child to be in their space of a gifted
Mhm,
self
mhm.
to help uh, humanity in whatever way they're being called for. And I just want to share an example. Like, my son, who's 11, he was 10 last year, right? So we met some lady at McDonald's and we were eating lunch out there, and the lady was smoking. And kids are kids, right? They're going to say whatever they're going to say. So it turns out that my son just told her, have you ever thought about quitting smoking? And she said, yeah, I have. I've thought about it, but I've never really attempted it. And he just told her, well, it'd be good for your lungs if you stop smoking, and it would be good for your health, and it would be good for your whole body. So that's all he said. And I'm just like, okay, because some people don't like to be told, like they should
Mhm.
stop smoking. But this was coming from his heart.
Yeah.
So it turns out that she had just lost a son. And when I saw her 2 weeks later through the drive-through, she said that thanks to my son, that she decided to quit smoking.
Yeah.
Because he spoke from the heart, she felt
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
It
Yes.
wasn't someone telling her what to do.
Hmm.
It was someone speaking from the heart. She felt it. So when we as parents are able to work on our traumas, do the inner work, we can allow for our children
Yeah.
to speak freely because we haven't caused trauma in them speaking from their heart.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Because
I
they're
see that
not
with my
coming
child
from,
too.
right?
Hmm.
Because they're not coming from like what you said. If I would be a mother that responded in a way that was toxic, it makes the child become either shy to talk,
Hmm.
embarrassed to talk,
Yeah.
not feeling free to talk,
Hmm.
and not thinking that what they have to say is valid.
So true. I see this a lot. Um, and even just not even with sometimes with clients, but even just outside. You're walking outside, you're going to
Mhm.
wherever, and I see so many young children who are supposed to be out there bursting with energy, interacting with each other, but they're like standing there like little statues and
Uh-huh.
quiet and mute. Not because they can't speak, they do speak.
Mhm.
Not because they're not being kind, they're being very kind. But every way that they're operating is in a space of fear.
Mhm.
Everything is from, and these are like 5, 6,
Mhm.
4 year old, 7, 8 years old. Um, and it's very, and I recognize, I understand, there's zero judgment here. So anyone that's listening, I want you guys to know this is a space where there is no judgment. We have all, been there some part in our lives.
Right.
Um, and one of the things I want to share is that when a child is at their most creative is in these formative years before 7, and then of course after 7,
Mhm.
but those times, this is when they need to have that energy, that freeness, that creativity is just
Mhm.
blossoming. It's coming out who they are meant to be in this world. Their purpose
Mhm.
unfolds at that time, right up until 7 and a little bit after. And but if they're operating from a state of fear because they have experienced trauma, and the
Mhm.
trauma has been passed down because of a reaction that they're receiving or a negative response that is continuously being fed to them, then they're just like, okay, I'm just supposed to sit here, be still, do all this. So when they go into school, they sit still, they
Mhm.
listen, they do all those things. What happens is eventually, if not then, later on, this is when the rebellion starts to kick in.
Mhm.
This is where the rebellion comes in. And all of us that has had trauma in our lives in some form or another, we have all rebelled. Maybe it's in our teens, maybe it's in our 20s where we're thinking, you know what, I'm just going to go out and party. I'm just going to party, or whatever it is. And so we go to an extreme in certain things. and then we have to come back, like, and we come back and we become more balanced within ourselves. We start to love ourselves. When I say balance, I mean like love and heal ourselves and doing the work so that we can just enjoy and live and be and serve in our purpose.
Right, right, right. That is so powerful. That is so powerful because rebellion is a form of expression,
Mhm.
right? And like you said,
100%.
in my case, I know I rebelled in I'm going to say my 30s, where I was going through a divorce. And
Mhm.
whatever I couldn't do freely
Mhm.
is I was starting to do that in my 30s, which was very um, actually, you know, toxic behavior as far as getting into drugs,
Mhm.
experimenting, um, looking for a different, I was searching for a different feeling. I
Mhm.
was searching for something to get me out of the situation. And then I led me to being more whole in my mind with doing holistic work, doing the inner work. And it was more gratifying,
Mhm. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And, well, thank you for sharing that. And also, thank you for you being you because now with your son, he gets to see you and be with you and enjoy you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, after you've done the healing work
Mm-hmm.
so that he can be able to thrive in every year and every season of his life. And
Mm-hmm.
mamas out there, grandmamas out there that are listening, remember the work is ever evolving
Mm-hmm.
and continuous. It does
Mm-hmm.
become easier because it becomes a part of us, but it is always evolving. Nothing is finite or
Mm-hmm.
static.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, we release the trauma, but then we realize there's always that next level and that's next level. And we're not, the aim isn't to say, oh, I have to achieve this,
Mm-hmm.
right? We
Right.
always try to have
Yeah,
like
because
a,
we do that.
yeah, we do that. Like, oh, I have to achieve this and then I'll be good. No, it's not that you have to achieve this to be good. I'm going to enjoy the present. I'm going to enjoy the moment. I'm going to do the work and I'm going to live and live beautifully and be
Right.
of service
Yeah.
to humanity with your purpose, whatever your purpose is. It could
Yeah.
be being a parent at home.
Yeah.
That is your purpose in that moment. And or maybe now you're a grandparent, your purpose right now is to volunteer wherever it is that's volunteering. Maybe you've retired but there is still so much more left to give. All right. So
Mhm.
those experiences, that service that you're doing, your purpose is evolving, it's expanding. And so you healing your trauma is
Mhm.
not only a necessity to yourself within you and
Right.
to your family, but also to your community at large, because you're actually transforming lives when you can release the trauma and walk in purpose.
Oh, that's so powerful. And I love what you said that the healing becomes a necessity,
Yeah.
right? To heal what your soul is looking to heal, but also the community and also like who you're surrounded by, right?
Mhm.
So it goes beyond, we're talking about like the purpose of the podcast is really
Yeah.
about ourselves and our children, right? How we become better mothers, but it can go beyond that, like what you're saying, right?
Mhm.
It's so,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's so amazing, right? So this is what I love talking and bringing guests on because this shows how mothers, yes, you're going through something right now, but yes, you have the choice to make that change. We can sit here talk all day about it, how
Yeah.
wonderful it is, right?
Yeah.
The person needs to make that choice to say, this is enough. I need to really, bring myself back to me and start knowing who I am.
100%. I will share with you something that I didn't write on the interview form, but
Mhm.
I think so needed for this
Okay.
moment, right? And this is just to share with parents so that you know you're not alone because this is your story as well in
Right.
its own way.
Mhm.
When I had faith, even before I had faith, I stopped to think, and as all mothers that are pregnant do, or even if you're adopting, you're thinking, right? Even if you go through adoption and stuff, you're thinking, what type of child are you going to be? Because we don't know,
Right.
right?
Right.
So we start asking these questions in our heart. Generally, most people do that. Now the child is born, and you're thinking in the space that we have for our children, we want the space to be quiet and we want the room to be light and airy and like as close to heaven, I'm using that word, as possible, because we want this child to feel safe. We want this
Right.
child to retain their innocence and all of those things. So what I did, and this is just for others because you're always creating the space. And as I mentioned earlier, I teach, that's my foundational work, is teaching how to create space in your home, in your mind and such. So I started to create the space before I was pregnant. And then when Faith was born, I would have on very specific affirmations already
Okay.
in the home. Now, it's not blasting in her room all the time. Like it will be like in the hallway. And I would put it always in the center of the home. And every home has a center. It doesn't matter if you're in an apartment or not. And when you put that music on, or you put on the affirmations, or even if whatever, that goes through. And it taps into her subconscious mind. And I had on like, I am affirmations. I am this, I am that. And that helped me. Now I'd have that on and then I'll go and work out. I'm not far away, but I'm close enough. So I was moving my body, and I was also making the home a place of life. I was bringing the home to life, and I still continuously do that while simultaneously really tapping into her subconscious mind so that whatever she's come with, because we don't know what kids are coming with, those thoughts can start getting solidified. I am kind. I am healthy. I am purposeful. All of these I ams, whatever the I am you choose to use, and or classical music you choose to use. By the time she was 2.5, she was already sharing with me, Mom, this is what I want. She wanted a unicorn scooter, for example. Well, she did want a unicorn scooter. And I didn't know. I thought it was on TV because, kids see stuff and they always want things. Right. Actually, it's like, oh, you're doing the dishes and they come and they tell you something, right?
Yeah.
But it was actually from this catalog from the bookstore catalog. This was when they had catalogs a few years ago. It's discontinued now. And every time she would sit and eat, she would have this book with her, this catalog, and she would like look at this scooter. And finally, when I finally came to sit with her, she told me after I think like 2 or 3 weeks or something, Mom, the unicorn scooter. So I look up, I'm thinking, oh, I'm about to turn off the TV so we could sit and eat. I don't see this unicorn scooter. But she's like, no, it's here. And I remember saying to her, well, Faith, that's great. I'm glad that you like this, but not just because we want something doesn't mean we always have to get it right away. Now, I didn't tell her no, because it was the objective is, and there's nothing wrong with saying no, because sometimes we have to say no. In this case, it wasn't warranted. I wanted to see where she was at that point. And I said to her, if you do some work, like help out around the house, little things, maybe, give Sparkle her food, or I don't know, you could put your plate in the sink, very simple things, right? And you help out, then, you this is your work, and then we can work towards that, because I wanted to see where she was at. And she was like, okay. And I said, all right, so how much are you going to charge? Now, I wasn't expecting anything fancy. So don't expect them to tell you $1 million. Maybe they might say $1 million and then you negotiate. But what you're doing is really tapping into it. And I'm using this as an example so you guys can understand how simple and easy and natural and beautiful this process is, right? And you're also healing your own trauma by doing this. And so because of that, she would say $2. At that time, her work for the day was $2. I was like, okay, I'm good with $2. 2 days later, she goes to grandma's house And she really does help her. She's like, oh, I'll help you take out the garbage. She took out the the bathroom garbage from the garbage can. And she was like, oh, wait, no, I got to push the machine. Right. So she helped her push the machine. Right. But she's like, oh, it's okay. I'll do something. Can I wash the dishes? I was like, you can't really wash the dishes. You will get hurt. She's like, okay, I could turn on the water and I'll stand here. Can I? And so that was her helping. At the end of all of it, they had a great day. My mom was so happy. Everything was working out. She's like, oh, I need my $2. 2.5 years old. And my mom says to her, for what? She's like, well, I did all this work. And my mom said, if I do this work, I'll get $2 and then I could get my unicorn scooter. So that was her goal. Okay. So I wanted to share. We put in the work. I created the space. She had all of these things. And now we're at this point where all the things that is in her head and formulated and ingrained and imprinted, and it's start coming into action. Mm-hmm. My mom is like, I'm not giving you $2 because I didn't make a deal with you. But she's like, no. And kids, they're like, no, you don't understand. This is how it is. Like, they're so like, this is
because they take it literal. Yeah.
Yeah, like literally. My mom calls me 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like so happy because I'm like, I had a day to rest. Okay. Oh, you owe your daughter $2 for what? Like, I forgot about this $2 now. Because I didn't think she would take this seriously. I really did. And so I'm like, just give her the $2. Anyways, it was all of these things that happened, but eventually she got her $2 and she worked every day. And every day she would say to me, Mom, is it time yet? Is it time yet? And she even had an investor. My aunt invested $5 into, because she was so consistent with just helping out and being supportive and doing all the things. And that led to when she finally, like, the day came for her to get this scooter. Okay. And I remember it was on sale and my mom actually picked it up, but she didn't know my mom picked it up at that time. And I said, no. And I was like, oh no, I don't want the scooter too. My mom was like so invested in this because she was part of this process as well. Right. So she says, no, like, I don't want her to go and the scooter is sold out. And, because she didn't want this trauma to happen in her heart. Like, I worked so hard and I didn't get it. Right. This is part of, like, for me, I'm like, this is part of life. If it happens, it happens. She can get it another time. Don't worry about it. She ended up getting the scooter because it was on sale, which is fine. But when the day came for Faith to get the scooter, it was a snowy winter day. We shouldn't have been outside at all. But places were open. It wasn't like super horrid, but nobody wants to go outside when it's
right.
When it's that bad.
Things are that way, right?
Yeah. And I called the store and I said, look, I know you guys have the scooter. I have a scooter already, but my daughter wants to go through the process. I just need her to go through the process, take the money from her, and then, like, give her a receipt or whatever else. And so they actually was so on board. I was so excited for that because, they just were part of this healing process. Now, this healing process, when you start looking at it, it's a grandparent process. It's generational, a parental process, because her dad was there with her as well. Like, he wanted to see this whole thing. And the grandchild, the three generations of financial healing, trauma when it comes to how we look at finances, how we look at our mindset, our thinking, all of these things, right? So when we think that things aren't related, they all intertwine. So she goes there, she looks through the whole store, and then it came time for her to give the money. And I remember her just sitting on the counter, and I have like these pictures and I took some videos, and she was just like breathing, like, and I said, is everything okay? And she's like, I just need a moment. Like, this was her moment to release, like, I really went through all of this. I worked so hard. Now, I don't know what she was thinking. I'm only imagining what she was thinking in that moment, but I could just see the expression on her face. So then that was her first moment where she believed something, because not only did I create the space, not only did I do the healing work of releasing the trauma, but now I'm seeing another generation taking the steps to be in purpose and to fulfill what's in their mind, what's in their heart. So she's testing out something. And then
Right.
the next step came where with the business Faith and Sparkles World, for many of you mamas out there, it started because of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, my mom had cancer. Now, during that time, my mom was going through her treatments. So after she gets her scooter, a couple of months later, it's her birthday because she's born in March. And after her birthday, at 3 years old, she says, Mom, I'm a superhero doctor. Like, huh? I'm sleeping 12 o'clock at night. She doesn't want to sleep. She's telling me all these things.
Mm-hmm.
That's when creativity hits, I guess. And that is in that moment, even though I was sleeping and I'm like, just go to sleep, I'm still listening. She's like, you're not listening to me. So because she had that training from before of
Mm-hmm.
me responding to her and how I've responded to her,
Mm-hmm.
she felt free to say to me, Mom, you're not listening to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got up. I'm like, okay, now I'm listening. What is Mom? I'm a superhero doctor. And then she wanted to share this message of kindness and compassion. And she wanted to share all the things about how to be a superhero. Now, these are real life experiences that she had with her grandmother, her dog, and her grandmother, how she and her dog helped her grandmother. And then she wanted it to be a real book. And I was like, sure, let's see why. Because instead of reacting and saying, this is not possible, I responded and say, well, let's see what is possible. I'm going to call around. I said, there's no guarantees. Now, when I called around to some smaller ones and some bigger publishing companies, they're like, this is an exceptional story. You have a great series here. I love this. Yeah. And I was like, no, this is my 3-year-old daughter's story. This is her idea. This is her. They're like, what? Anyways, then she wanted it, fast forward, she wanted it to be a real book. And so then we went through the self-publishing route because I wanted it to be hers. I wanted her to remember
Mm-hmm.
this memory. I wanted this to be a part of her journey.
Mm-hmm.
And as we went through, there are bumps along the way, but there are so many other highs as well. Because now I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning to respond in every situation, not only with her, but now in business, now with myself, now with every single thing that's happening. And so
Mm-hmm.
you see the pattern as we heal our trauma. It is generational
Mm-hmm.
that we're healing when it comes to
Right.
certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we can all live in purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to think we need to be all the way up to the top in the beginning. Just take it one step at a time, slow and steady, listening with our heart, like your son speaking from his heart.
Mm-hmm.
Allow our children to speak from their heart
Right. Mm-hmm.
and going through the work, journeying together. And
Mm-hmm.
out of that, even though I was in a leadership position, I was in the military. I taught leadership. I worked with other companies and as a leader, as project lead and such. Having it as a business, I wasn't even thinking to do that myself. But
Right.
from this young child, going through this process, meeting parents, engaging with them, Faith now does speaking engagements because she wants to talk about kindness and compassion and about bullying and all of those things because she's experienced it. Parents come and they ask me these questions. How do you raise a child like this? How can I listen to my child? My child is going through this. I'm not sure what I want to do. And so then all of a sudden I get the second act at life, something skill that I already had, things that I already knew how to do, and I was implementing it, in certain spaces. Now all of a sudden it's like there is this need, and I am equipped, I
Mm-hmm.
am prepared to fill that need. So you see how it all aligns as we
Mm-hmm.
release the trauma, the healing that takes place, and the purpose that are intertwined in our lives with ourselves, with our children, with our parents, and then it extends out into our community.
Yes, beautiful.
Yes.
And that's something that you said when you're sharing your story about how through your daughter's creativity and her work, then it
Mhm.
led you to meeting other moms asking you questions, and you do have leadership training from the military. Um, I just want to say that as moms, we can have identity shifts
Yes.
where we're not we're not so much in the idea that we're stuck in this trauma, or a
Mm-hmm.
mother that isn't being appreciated, or a
Mm-hmm.
mother that isn't seen for all her work that she does. But we have the ability to shift our identity of who we really are, not the trauma, but the
Mm-hmm.
gifted person that we are, the talented
Absolutely.
person that we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your daughter, the compassionate person, the kind person, bringing those identities out to who you are, and be able to encompass that to become this newer version. And I believe moms have a hard time becoming that newer version because they identify with the old. They can't get out of the old. It's doing the inner healing work to identify with the authenticity of who you really are.
Absolutely. And one of the ways to start doing that, instead of overthinking it, and one of the things I mentioned is creating that
Mhm,
space. Start putting on that music,
mhm,
that life-giving, healing music, and just have it in the house as background when you're home. As a, you have a newborn. Maybe you're
mhm,
on bed rest because you need to, or you have a toddler. Just have it in the background. That
mhm,
creates the the energetic feel that you want, the environment, the atmosphere. You are welcoming, you're opening up your spirit and your child's spirit. All of a sudden, if your child is running, bouncing off the wall, they start to get calm. They become calm because the
Interesting.
environment that you've created, the atmosphere, is calm,
Mhm,
right? Or peaceful, or whatever type of music you put on, or empowering. Even if it is empowering, they will get energized, but then all of a sudden they're calm, right?
mhm, mhm,
It just balances it out. And that identity shift in, like, thinking, okay, well, I'm only a mom, or
mhm,
I experienced this and I'm having a tough time. I went through a bad divorce, or I'm a
mhm,
single parent,
mhm,
and it's just me. And I understand, I'm a single parent too. It is just me. There's no one else. How am I going to do this? When you start shifting the environment, your mindset also starts to shift. It
mhm,
just it's one of those things that's synchronistic. It happens naturally. Why? Because you've shifted. You make the intentional choice, the decision to say, I want my home to feel however it is. Insert the
mhm.
word you want your house to feel like. You start shifting it by bringing in the music, right? Or the life-giving words. It could just be like an empowering message that you listen to. Have it
Mm.
on in the background.
Right.
That starts shifting it, and then your mind starts to shift. All of a
Mhm.
sudden you want to move. You need to work
Right.
out. You may not get the ideas right away. You may not be, it's not going to happen. And sometimes it does happen in 24 hours if you're ready. If not, it may not. But then you start moving your body physically. Then all of
Mhm,
a sudden you want to read more. You want to learn more. And then
mhm,
spiritually you want to grow. And then everything starts to align. And then you're like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm a mother, but I'm a mother here, and I love what I'm doing, and this is where I'm meant to be, and I'm going to give my all. I understand what is my next step in the journey. Remember, you don't have to do 20 steps, 100 steps. You just need to know the next step.
yeah. And I love what you just said. I'm a mother, and that gives us the ability to be more than
100%.
just mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We're so much more. We're so much more. Remember, life, you, in every life, that every person that comes into your life, you are, even if you're knowingly or unknowingly, you are touching them. You are activating something in them or not.
Mhm,
And so when you activate something in someone else, even if it's only your own child, even if it's your plants as well, you're
mhm.
also that, whatever you send out, you're going to receive. This is nothing new that I'm saying. We all
Right.
know this. We've all experienced this. It's a fact. Um, it's going to come back, and that part of us also opens up and expands, and
Mhm,
we start touching lives. There are lives that will be touched that you may never know. but they will
That's
go on to do so many amazing and spectacular things where they're actually touching and helping other people's lives as well.
yeah,
So
so amazing.
100%. So don't think and don't get into that mindset or that belief and thinking, well, I'm just a mom and well, I'm not really doing much. I used to be this or I used to be
Mhm.
that. No, what you're doing right now is where you need to be in this moment, in this season. And believe it or not, you are having a lot of impact because when you think about it, even if you have one child, maybe you have five, think about that. That one child, when they go out there, maybe they're in school, maybe they are in a after school activity. Let's say they're in dance or something, or hockey or baseball. That one child that you have prepared, that you have showered with love and all of the things that you need to fill your child up with. That child goes out and that child's light is shining and touching. How many people are on a baseball team? They will need like 22 people, for
Mhm.
example,
Mhm.
22 kids.
Mhm.
Wow. One of 22 kids your child is, and that one child is impacting at least five other people,
Yeah.
at least five other people. And because of that impact, let's say that child is sharing kindness or
Mhm.
teamwork. Let's just use the word
Mhm.
teamwork. Those five other kids are going to be like, man, I like that. So your child automatically activated teamwork in five other people,
Mhm.
activated it.
Mhm.
You may never even know. You may know, you may not know. And sometimes they may not be friends with your son or your daughter, right? But
Mhm.
they look at your son and daughter and they're like, I like that. I see that. Man, I want to be like this. I want to have that teamwork attitude, for example, or that
Mhm.
leadership
Mhm.
quality. Man, I want to be the best hitter or thrower, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Insert that there. And that person is looking to your child whose light is shining, all because you have done the work. You have healed. You have touched and activated and prepared your child. So
Yeah.
now they've touched somebody else, and
Yeah,
so
it's
on
so
and so on.
true. And that, and it's so interesting that you said that because going back to the story of the McDonald's worker that
Yes.
my son touched, because I do the work of the healing and I
Mhm.
have clients that we heal trauma, he activated something within her to heal that she was had the will to stop smoking.
Yeah. And she can
So
make a conscious decision of it, right?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's the beautiful world that, we want to convey in the podcast of
Mhm.
how, this is so accessible to moms, with your work, my work, and all the guests that come on board. They all have their mission and how they can help us become closer to our authentic uh,
Mhm.
being that we are, so we can
Mhm.
convey that to the children. And then it goes generationally, right? So this is how
Yes.
we're starting to shift into that holistic way of living within ourselves. And then it transfers into our children and then our community. And so I can sit here all day and speak more. Can you share with us a tip or two on how moms can, maybe if they're having a tough day, they can't have the clearness in their head of how to go the next day or wake up in the morning and see even their day? Is there something that you can give
Yes.
that they can do for themselves?
Absolutely. There's always something that we can do. As I mentioned earlier, create the space, the environment that you want.
Mhm.
In the evening times, and I know we hear this all the time, so I'm going to make it as practical. This is something that I do
Okay,
as
great.
well.
Okay.
When your child is in sleep, or even if your child is awake and they're like, I can't sleep, I don't want to sleep,
Mhm.
start doing the meditation with them. Do a
Mhm.
reflection. The reflection can just be like, how was your day? What did you learn today? Who were you kind to today? Now, you
Mhm.
ask yourself these three simple questions. Maybe your child is there and they're like, I don't have time to do it. Do it with your child, do it with your husband. And
Oh, I see.
everybody takes the time to either write down, if they could write, or verbally express What happened? That is your reflection. Then you take another, if you're by yourself, take another 30 minutes, 15 minutes of quiet reflection. You could have music on if you want, and you just sit in stillness, or lay in stillness,
Mm.
right? Because then you're like, okay, I've released, I have let go of any hurt, any trauma, any challenges of that day. And now you're activating your very own spirit to clear the path for the next 24 hours. And in turn,
Mm.
if you're doing it with your family, now where two or more are gathered, this is where you're even more stronger. Now you lay there with your child or sit up and you guys do some breath work together. So they're learning how to release the trauma. They're learning how to release whatever happened in their day as well. And this will get you and prepare you for the next day and the next day. So you're moving from glory to glory.
Beautiful. And moms, if you are not familiar with this or it seems strange, give it a shot. It's very healing to your mind, to your heart, and to your being, how you really are feeling. So give this a shot. This is like one of the best things. Like, I love what you said, involve, if you don't have time, involve the child,
Yes.
because then it's
100%.
it's like a dual healing, right? And
Absolutely.
I never even thought of that, because you just hear so much like, take the time for yourself, give yourself.
Mhm.
And moms usually say, I don't have the time because I'm doing this and that with the children.
Mhm.
And I love what you said, include them.
Yes. They're going to grow exponentially. Now, they are going to grow and they will remind you. This is the kicker. They will remind you that you need to have self reflection time. They
Mm-hmm.
will remind you that you need to be in the quiet, even
Oh.
if you're doing it alone by yourself. And I'm telling you this from experience. My daughter, even up until last night, I'm like, I'm ready for bed. Normally I read her a bedtime story and then she gets like a scripture verse that
Mhm.
she'll read, very short one-liners. Um, and she was like, oh, I can't. And she got up and, oh, you didn't read my story yet. I didn't get my story yet. I didn't get my bless. You didn't bless me yet. I didn't speak life over her yet. And so it was this, there you go, because she's so used to it that even when I'm like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to do it, she's like, nope, we got to do this. I need this. I don't know about you, but I need to heal my life.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Accountability.
That's right. Accountability. We always think that we have to, oh, I need another mom for accountability. I need this person for
Yes.
account. Listen, you have it in your own home, okay? And kids are the best accountability partners because they don't let up. They will remind you.
I love it. I love it. So let us know, how can the audience get a hold of you, or how can they connect with you online?
Absolutely. So you can go to faithandsparklesworld.com. I encourage you to join our Facebook group.
Mhm.
Um, it's Facebook/group / Faith and Sparkles World. Or even if you go on the website, just click on our Facebook. And in that group, it is geared for parents. It is geared for entrepreneurs as well, even if you're an entrepreneurial parent or a professional. And in there, I'm giving you weekly, almost daily tips, as well as every month I host a free webinar. So this Friday, this upcoming Friday, we have the Art of Empower Leadership. But next month in November, when this podcast is going out, it is going to be on resilience. We're going to talk about
Beautiful.
resilience so that
Yeah,
this way you can end your year stronger than you started. So that's the
beautiful.
best
That's
way to get
lovely. I
started.
love
Yeah.
that. Yes, yes, absolutely. So I encourage the audience to find you there so they can
Mhm.
receive more, like you said, free webinars that you offer. So,
Yes, there's the free webinars. Yes. And we're also creating a membership space, because I'm finding that people want that Q&A, and they want those times together to really know, how can I do the inner work?
mhm. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll put all the links for you where they can find you on your online space. Yes. And I see it right here in the chat. Um, Faith and Sparkle World and
Mhm.
faithandsparkleworld.com. Yeah, beautiful. And so they'll have a way to connect with you. So I appreciate your presence and your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And like I said, we could have talked another hour, but I think we're
I
good
know we
on
gotta go.
time.
I know, I
We went a
know.
little over, but that's okay. It was very juicy. So, and you know, we encompassed about generational, we encompassed about moms shifting out of their identities into
Mhm.
becoming more than a mom and being able to see the changes within themselves and then their children and community. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Delisa, and we look forward to hearing from you more in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. See you on the next episode. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes. It would also mean the world to me if you're able to take a moment and rate and review my podcast on how it was helpful to you. Also, please connect with me on my social media platforms. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next episode.